Okay, so I changed my push to talk settings. I've got my green screen successfully set up back here, so this is just a green cloth. As you can see, my crutches here are still there because I am a hobbled mad professor. That's my cast. Nobody's signed it yet. Maybe you can be the first. Okay, so I'm just kind of playing around, gonna be walking around Multiversity. I'm gonna turn off the Minecraft music once I get in because I'm not really a big fan of it. That's right. Okay. Turn the sound down even more, the master volume. Uh-oh. I might have to do some work on the server side and mess with my settings because it looks like it might have crashed. I hope. Oh no. Still up. That was good news. So let's see. I decided. That's right. Last time I was here, I decided I wanted to build some stuff. So we have this whole network of portals that brings you to different areas of the multiversity. And this one in particular. Oh, I started stocking boats here. This is a custom potion that I made. So what do I want to do? I don't know. I'm hanging out at the headquarters here and have some time to kill, so this is kind of like my personal art therapy session right now. Just happen to be broadcasting, so if you're watching, good for you. If you're not watching, then I guess I'm not talking to you. So maybe I'll pull it up on my phone just so you can hear it. Actually, I don't really care. Too much audience engagement. Actively talking to people because I'm not set up for that right now. Dude, that's right. I wanted to try to make this place a little less creepy. Dragon's Tooth Axe. Oh, that's right. I was using the Dragon's Tooth Axe on the space. Iron there. By the way, if you want to know why my Minecraft looks so cool, it's the BD Craft source pack that makes it look like more comic. I didn't really draw anything out. I don't have like a no site plan or anything for this. I didn't drop any blueprints. I'm just kind of playing around. These bricks, if anybody was watching before, you would know that I bought these bricks at a store. Forget how to use the store plugin. I think it's like an inventory shop. That's from the simple shop one. Shop open /shop list. I forget how to use it. I'm not going to waste time with that right now. It's a fun plugin though. Message. Who's that? I'm gonna check this right now. I'm an adult and I have responsibilities, so these things happen. Brother. Pretty cool guy. See, I guess I will open up my Twitch app on my phone. That way if anybody is interacting with the stream, the best way to interact is through my twitch.tv /madprof M4dpr0f. Because, you know, if people are watching and have questions to interact, it's kind of nice. Makes me feel like so I'm going to take my broken phone here, open it up, put in my special passcode, send my brother a smiley face, just message me, open Twitch on here. See? Like, no, it shows Imagine Testing is live. So if you chat me on Twitch, that's where I'll see your message. And it'll be right here. Right on my lap-based control panel. See, I think this is going to need a staircase, so I'm going to try to control the water. I'm gonna alt tab and hopefully it doesn't mess up my Minecraft. It's kind of my favorite thing to listen to. Zelda and chill. Because the ambiance of this dungeon-y thing is just kind of depressing. Aquí es estoy haciendo un lugar de hospedaje entre los mundos, ¿no? Hierro, tanto hierro. El hierro porque se puede hacer pues se puede hacer mucho. special axe created by Jerubial Stardust to get some things done. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of one of the epic artifacts. I know there's probably like way cooler things, way blah blah blah, but be alright. click here where it says Access Narrative Order Reading Guide. Click that, and it'll give you that. So I'm going to copy the clipboard. Change it to, instead of view it in Google Chrome, maybe if I do. It's not so easy to put this up. No, there goes my Zelda and chill. It's a disaster. that's what it looks like in the world. And now I'm going to go to my Beehive Design Collective narrative, storybook companion to an epic illustration. Turn the music on. Let's see. Lights on. Cost of coal. Mountaintop removal and the fight for our future. Uh-oh. So this is a giant mural that was created by the Beehive Design Collective that we have embedded inside of the server. So let's just take a look at it. An interactive visual tour of the connections between mountaintop removal mining, climate change, and the struggle for justice in Appalachia throughout the world. www.beehivecollective.org. Beginning. You hold in your hands an echo of discussions, storytellings, and song sharing that have taken place since 2008 between the Beehive Collective and community organizers, activists, and folks in Appalachia whose lives and livelihoods have been impacted by mountaintop removal coal mining, MTR. Turn this music down even more because I'm not sure how well my voice is actually coming through over it. I like it, it's very calming. I'm sure you can hear me. Hello, hello. How's that? I think that's a better balance. These exchanges of inspiration and information were collaboratively woven together to a tapestry of illustrated graphics designed to strengthen and support critical reflection and strategic action in defense of the Appalachian Mountains and the cultural and biological diversity they nurture. The true cost of coal is dense with metaphors drawn from the natural world. It is rooted in history, grounded in the grinding urgency of MTR, fueled by the looming threat of climate change, and guided by the robust grassroots resistance of everyday Appalachians. It is populated by characters from the mountains, plants, and critters under siege and fighting back. It is a love letter to the resilient, sustainable world that has quietly endured in the hills and hollers, all the while, despite the horrors of displacement, the abuses of the powerful, and the onslaught of industrial-scale extraction. It is about the better world our communities are envisioning, building, and defending every day in a million ways. You are part of this story. So are we. Our dependence on coal-powered electricity, to our collective ability to organize for climate justice, we are each implicated in the struggle for the mountains, which is really the struggle for all places. Though we cannot pretend to speak for the daily lived realities of the coal fields of Appalachia, we are listening to the wisdom of those that do, and are striving to create a tool to help us all decipher these overwhelming times we are living through. Each of us has a unique piece of the story, and each of our communities has a different kind of power. As we harness that power and leave the coal in the ground, we are remaking the world. Acknowledgements. We're grateful for the collaboration and contribution of many organizations who have strategized and shared, supported this project. I'm going to skip reading all of these. I kind of want to get to the narrative. But as you can see, there's a very large number of organizations that has contributed to this graphic and this epic storytelling endeavor. So while in Minecraft it's just shown as a big image, these are usually giant, sometimes cloth banners that are printed, and people use them on tour and teaching workshops in classrooms all around the world. View from the grassroots. Our story begins with the poster folded to reveal a mountain hollow. Ooh, okay. Here we see the Appalachian Mountains from the ground up ant's eye view. Cool. Teeming with biodiversity and nourished with abundant fresh water, this world is home to generations of plants and animals who are seen enacting the cycles of birth, life, death, and regeneration, growing, gathering, and preparing food, sharing stories, songs, and skills, producing, exchanging, and reusing goods and tools, and transmitting historical memory. They are intimate with the land and rooted in economies of place. Please see back cover for a diagram and folding tips. Landscape of power and extraction. When the graphic opens by pulling the edges apart, both mountain and watershed are torn asunder, revealing a dramatic shift of perspective. Top right to bottom right. Wow, okay, so this here regeneration piece is okay, I see. So top right, regeneration, resistance, mountaintop removal and climate chaos, colonization and industrialization, and ancestors. So you can see that on the graphic that's exposed and barren. This is the landscape of mountaintop removal, coal mining on a global scale, where the thirst for resources and the hunger for profit displace community health and sustainable lifeways. At a resource extraction colony within the United States, as a resource extraction colony within the United States, Appalachia is sacrificed and poisoned in the name of cheap electricity for consumers and consolidation of power and wealth for corporations and government. Biological and cultural diversity are threatened, while the spiral of climate chaos and unnatural disaster looms menacingly above. A spiral timeline. In addition to contrasting these opposing landscapes and worldviews, the graphic reads from left to right as a meandering historical timeline, but we see history fold in on itself along the seam where ancestors and regeneration meet, weaving together historical possibility, inviting us to reach into the past to build a just and viable future. We begin in the top left corner. Okay, so I'm going to go into the game and focus on the top left and then get back to the reading guide. Okay, and it looks like my YouTube playlist switched over to Zelda and Lo-Fi. I think I'm going to switch to a different frequency. One moment. This is going to be the 963 Hertz Life Force Energy. on the Healing Meditation channel now. I don't even know if this is making it through the broadcast, but I need something to kind of balance me out in my earpiece here. Okay. Now, ancestors. To understand where we are, we must remember where we've been. In this nighttime scene, we find communities living as though their lives depend on the land around them. The night sky, undisturbed by satellites or airplanes, is filled with constellations, used for orientation, navigation, and storytelling. Origins. Okay, let's see, is that in our picture we're looking at right now too? Okay, so I see the owl and everything. And the origins is the ants. You see the ants and the worm in that piece there? I might be covering it up. See, I'm having trouble finding that exact piece that it's showing. There's just so much going on in this mural, it's hard to follow. Okay, I see it. There's a little ant holding a pickaxe next to a worm. That's what I'm looking for in the big mural. Okay, it's this one down at the bottom. Origins. The coal we use today in the US supply over 50% of our electricity began its life over 300 million years ago as giant plants decomposing and compressing in an ancient swamp. Descendants of these ancestors are still around today. We know them as ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. The sunlight stored in those ancient fossils through photosynthesis is what we capture when we burn coal over 10,000 years of compressed solar energy consumed in a flash. And coal still does today what those plants did all those millennia ago. Like a giant Brita filter, it sucks heavy metals and toxins out of water and soil, sequestering them in the ground forever. And then there's the source of water and life, it looks like. Okay, I see that. That's just a little bit to the right of what I'm showing on the screen now. Let me zoom in on that in the graphic on Minecraft. Oh, hello? The source of water and life. The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest mountains on Earth, and they are incredibly special. After massive glaciers buried northern habitats in a mile of ice, Appalachia served as the seedbed of North America, repopulating a desolate landscape with its abundant genetic stores. These mixed mesophytic forests are the most biodiverse temperate forests in the world. The mountains are also home to the headwaters of major rivers of the eastern seaboard and the Midwest. The water that flows from the taps of Atlanta and Washington originates here in the mountains, where it's purified by underground coal seams. Okay, so this taller graphic is that tree. Let's see, where's the scene? So many little scenes in here. This is a really complicated graphic. I mean, I see it. Looks kind of like it, but that's not the same thing. Where is it? Okay, I'm just gonna stop messing with the Minecraft view and read straight through the guide because I might be able to get through it before I stop broadcasting. Just read straight through because I've got time, but not the time in the world. So I'm going to read through it. I encourage folks on their own time to study the graphic, whether in our server or just going to beehivecollective.org and checking it out on your own. Cycles of life and death. The Appalachians are also amazingly special because of their unique layered human history. And whether our ancestors were indigenous Cherokee or belonged to some very different place, whether all of our family histories are folks who knew how to live in a seasonal way in a cyclical world, seeing here planting seeds among the leaf litter of past seasons, these gray squirrels know that new life regenerates from death, that all energy cycles, and that all energy cycles. Oh, new life regenerates from death, and that all energy cycles. Healthy soil, the foundation of life, is built over generations, from layers of composting detritus. Good for you, squirrels. People have migrated through Appalachia for millennia, from First Nations folks to people escaping enslavement. Seen here crash landing in the boughs of an American chestnut tree are European starlings, echoes of the Scots-Irish workers and farmers who fled political oppression in Europe in small numbers to resettle as self-reliant homesteaders in the Appalachians. They carry the cultural and ideological baggage of all migrating peoples, religion and language, agricultural practices and crops, music, tools, and weapons, and the next generation. Cool. Migration and rootedness. Song circle. Ancestral hoedown infuses the night with foot-stompin' energy as Appalachian dulcimer joins an African gourd banjo and a Cherokee drum in a riotous jig. These instruments are the grandparents of contemporary mountain music. That's what that looks like. Grasshoppers. Story. Critters from all walks of life gather around the fire's warm light, crafting tools and treasures and hearing stories of the past. Appalachia is home to some of the world's best and longest stories. Hello? I keep if I when I'm testing my mic, it's because sometimes I don't see the green meter going up, so it looks like I'm not speaking. Make sure that this is actually coming. I really need better sound equipment, by the way. If anybody likes this channel, donate for my sound equipment. Okay. Land use. Survival in the pre-industrial world meant resourcefulness, thrift, reusing old materials, and taking only what you could carry. Appalachian communities relied on their neighbors and on the food and fuel they could harvest themselves, much like the fishing heron, the timbering and building beaver, and the gathering and gardening snails, with their nutritious crops of corn, bean, and squash. Folks used and changed the land to meet their needs, but they did so within the land's ability to replenish itself. Community meal. Okay, so that's the land use is here. Whose permeable skin makes them extra sensitive to their surroundings, are sharing a meal of wild-crafted ramps, a savory root vegetable, chestnuts, and morel mushrooms with other forest dwellers. So I'm thinking, I'm reading this, to actually construct all of these scenes in our Minecraft world and make it more of a, maybe we can use this graphic, this narrative order reading guide, as a guide to how we're going to create our RPG system that I've already been experimenting with. If you see that I'm an Earth Dragon Witch, that's some of the experimenting I've been doing with those tools, but I might just zero everything out and recreate it around this guide because I'm really digging this story and I think it goes really well with Minecraft. Colonization, disease, and forced displacement. When the poster opens, we see throngs of European colonist birds following on the heels of the Scots-Irish in unprecedented numbers. They bring violence and a new agenda for the land of Appalachia, the production of quote-unquote wealth, sanctioned by the church, powered by the stolen labor of enslaved peoples, and reinforced with military might. They build a new nation-state on the graves of native peoples, 95% of whom perish at the point of a gun or in the fevers of smallpox and other diseases spread intentionally throughout the Americas as biological weapons. It's definitely a real ugly part of this whole thing. Oh. Yourself. Just this story. Cherokee was an oral language until 1830s when Sequoyah drafted the nation's first syllabary. Syllabary. Used to record Cherokee lifeways and letters and to defend rights to land and sovereignty in the face of genocide. Phoenix bilingual newspaper reached Cherokee and white readers alike with a strong, clear message. The Cherokee nation was negotiating for its survival. By the way, I've never read this guide before. I've known about this graphic for a long time. I've known about this guide, but this is my first time actually reading through it. So, thanks for bearing with me through this. Syllabary. I've never seen that, or I've never really thought about that word before. I've seen it before. So the nation's first syllabary. So that must have some relation to syllabus because I know a syllabus is like a guide to a class. So a syllabary must be a guide to a written language. A written guide to language, I'm guessing. The Trail of Tears. In 1838, the U.S. military forced the quote-unquote removal of over 14,000 Cherokee men, women, and children from their desirable mountain real estate in the dead of winter. During the long, cold procession out of mineral-rich Appalachia onto the quote, Indian Territory of Oklahoma, over 4,000 people died from starvation and deprivation. Although the majority of the nation was lost or relocated, some Cherokee folks remained in the mountains, negotiating life in two worlds. Not disappeared, though often invisibilized, indigenous folks persist in Appalachia and are present in the poster for generations to come. Coal-powered wealth. In the name of progress and productivity, new nation builders sought not only to rid the U.S. of indigenous peoples, seen as in the way, but to convert all available land, labor, and resources to profits for those in power. Their capitalist endeavors, including their wars, were fueled with coal harvested from Appalachia. Land grab. The arrival of the railroad brought an erosion of land rights for folks in the mountains, resulting in outside landowners claiming deeds to over 80% of all Appalachian territory. The broad form deed separated surface rights from mineral rights, which land prospectors gobbled up, often for 25 cents an acre. Labor grab. Feudal labor relations prevailed in the booming coal camps of the early 20th century, where coal companies kept miners indebted and imperiled in treacherous underground working conditions. Overseen with guns and preachers and paid only in company scrip, mining families could only secure food and housing from the company store at inflated prices, resulting in a lifetime of debt. Well, I'm not working in a mine, so how? Justification. Distance. Unionization and collective bargaining eventually won healthcare and safety victories for the United Mine Workers of America, UMWA. But strikers sacrificed their homes and sometimes their lives in the struggle for justice. Okay, so that's what the Fox writing is about. One of the largest labor struggles fought in the U.S. history, Blair Mountain, saw over 12,000 miners march on the seat of coal company power in armed resistance to repressive, militarized, and unsafe working conditions. In retaliation, coal operators summoned the U.S. Marshals who dropped bombs on the striking miners. Dang. That's apparently what that is about. Celebration Dance. Life in the coal camps was steeped in struggle, but is also remembered as a time of community resilience. Here, immigrant miners share stories, songs, and moonshine, while the square dancing June bug, bee, turkey, and woodcock celebrate Union victories. The long-awaited arrival of coal-powered electricity, more than a generation after it appeared in northern cities. Mountaintop removal. The wealth, industry, and empire of the U.S. were built on the resources of rural and wild lands, at home and abroad. Powered with the dust of dirty coal, and prospered by the sweat of miners and workers. Graphic, where a massive mine site is tearing into the landscape, colonies like Appalachia were sacrificed on the altar of the greater good, progress, power, and prosperity. And just as rural places gave birth to the modern industrial world, rising powers of government, banks, and big business also shaped the profile of Appalachia, transforming a region rich in traditions of land-based self-reliance into a job-centered mono-economy, reliant almost entirely on a single non-renewable resource: coal. TR. What's the difference? For over a century, coalfield communities watched the wealth of Appalachia carted out of the mountains by the trainload, leaving behind little of the prosperity or profits, the black diamonds, earned for absentee landowners. Today, coal mining operations are highly mechanized, using massive machines like the 22-story tall dragline below to excavate the thin seams of coal that run flat through the mountains like icing between layers of a cake. Unlike underground mines, which were worked with the handheld pick and shovel, MTR and other forms of strip mining explosives to expose and access underground coal seams, utterly decimating the soil, habitat, and critters above. Fractured mountain chunks, called overburden, are dumped in nearby waterways, polluting them with valley fills, inside out, upside down mountains. Over 2,000 miles of rivers are already buried, while far 450,000 acres, an area bigger than Manhattan, distributed over 450 distinct named mountaintops, flattened into lifeless moonscape. That's brutal. Mechanization. Machines replaced miners. In 1950, there were 150,000 coal miners in Appalachia. Today, fewer than 15,000 remain. And this is a kind of an old graphic, so that's probably even less now. I would check that now if I were you. And where an underground mine once employed 200 men and today employs only 30, an MTR site requires only 15 workers to extract vastly more coal. Through mechanization and union busting efforts by Massey Energy and other companies, the coal industry has eliminated so many jobs that many thousands of Appalachians have been forced to leave the mountains. Here, a continuous mining machine undercuts union power by chewing up UMWA helmets and lunch pails, while miners, the rattler, farmers, the skunk, and grannies, the possum, use their unique and potent defense mechanisms to fight back. Such direct actions, and even industrial sabotage, have been key tools of coalfield resistance for decades. about mechanization, the lights just turned off on me, but maybe that's a good thing. Okay, just kidding. I wanted the lights back on. But I don't think we're in a coal-powered place, so that's a positive development. Pays for Walmart's low prices. The new face of the company store is familiar across the rural US, where the Walmart mono-economy means dollars earned by miners purchase goods produced cheaply in US-owned factories overseas, leaving US local businesses unable to compete or survive. Development. Walmart's prisons and golf courses are the three main development projects promoted by big coal interests as beneficial uses of reclaimed former mine sites. Only 3% ever receive even this excuse for development. Depopulation plans. Folks whose labor is seen as an unprofitable count whose labor is seen as unprofitable count for little as efficient free market economy in an efficient free market economy. Depopulation plans by coal companies target schools and community spaces for consolidation and destruction, urging out-migration of folks who are seen as way of the extraction agenda. Prisons. New prison construction in Appalachia is lauded as a recipe for prosperity. While states trade in incarcerated people, many low-income people of color, and prisoners of the quote, war on drugs. The prison industry means big bucks for corporate profiteers who trade in human lives, but a world of violence and cages for prisoners and guards. Myth of reclamation. It's like a reindeer or an elk reclaimed lawn in a suburban neighborhood or something. But where are the lawmakers, the regulators, the news media? Coal industry propaganda, greased with tax breaks and skyrocketing profits, attempts to claim and persuade the public that mine lands are, quote, reclaimed, i.e., restored to their approximate original contour, and repopulated with oak, elk, and folks with job security. Yet, when coal operators abandon their strip jobs after they've pillaged the mineral wealth of the mountains, regulators barely find the multi-billion-dollar industry. Really, most of this. Every mountain is sacred to someone. While official cemeteries are some of the only lands deemed unsuitable for explosive mountaintop removal, unmarked and native burial sites are destroyed every day. They can't put it back. Ecological diversity in this graphic is a metaphor for the cultural vitality of the region, both of which are threatened by destruction from mountaintop removal. Mountaintop removal destroys renewable resources, a forest that could be replanted, a road that could be rebuilt. But other losses are permanent. Fertile topsoil, made rich over millennia, takes more than 500 years to accumulate even half an inch. Its extinct, endemic species, native only to a particular mountaintop or stream, take with them unique evolutionary adaptations, whole genetic languages that fall silent in their absence. Like soil or species, the fabric of community life, languages and dialects, skills for sustenance and survival, stories and songs, once unraveled through depopulation and degradation, are gone forever. I'm talking, if it sounds like I'm talking a little bit funny, I recently had my back molar removed because it was broken. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading this, but I have to check on my messages and make sure I'm not shirking any responsibilities here. So give me a second. Okay, so this is gonna explain the giant spires and stuff in the middle. Coal, combustion, consumption, and climate change. Climate chaos. Coal extracted from the mountains isn't buried in Appalachia. Where does it all go? And why do we need it so badly that it's worth sacrificing the oldest, most biodiverse mountains on the planet to get it at it? So I'm actually going to start trying to read faster because I need to, if I'm going to finish this whole guide, I need to read faster. So here we go. Along the horizon line of the graphic, we trace the full death cycle of coal on a global scale, from extraction and combustion to consumption and waste. At every stage, except in the ground, where it belongs, coal is deadly because processing it releases sequestered toxins and greenhouse gases into the air. Coal and other fossil fuels are used to power a linear production system that assumes the possibility of infinite growth on a finite planet, and whose sole purpose is to create wealth for those who benefit from it. But it is the folks least responsible for creating a fossil fuel dependent economy who are hit first and hardest by its worst side effect, climate change. Extracting power. Charging onto the scene as a souped up steam engine at full blast with tentacular arms feverishly gobbling up fuel, water, and forests and land. This heavily armored, coal-fired fortress represents the dual meaning of American power. Not only is the U.S. military the biggest consumer of fossil fuels in the world, it is often the U.S. government's tool of choice for securing access to energy resources, i.e. other people's stuff, around the globe. Endless war is the consumer of coal, and for the U.S., the Saudi Arabia of coal, an energy independence agenda means more coal extraction. Cheap electricity, it must be pulverized and burned. Oh, hello? Okay. Coal-fired power plants are responsible for more than 40% of all carbon dioxide emitted in the US each year. Not to mention cancerous heavy metals and yucky asthma-causing particulates. Former NASA scientist James Hansen estimates that 80% of the problems associated with climate change could be avoided today simply by leaving the coal in the ground. What does that mean when we're playing Minecraft and digging up coal all the time? I guess, I don't know. Transportation and manufacturing. Coal provides us with electricity, but it is also central to the manufacture of concrete, steel, and consumer goods, the building blocks of our industrial world. As multinational corporations and monolithic financial institutions like the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund force local economies to play ball in a global marketplace rigged to favor rich countries, manufacturing is outsourced to poorer countries who have even fewer environmental regulations and labor laws than the US. This means coal extracted in Appalachia is shipped all around the world, ironically, often to coal-producing parts of Asia and Latin America, where everything from essential goods to cheap plastic toys are assembled for Western consumer economies. Coal does more than keep the lights on. Check, check. There's an important piece here on greenwashing. Have you noticed that everyone claims to be going green these days? From Clorox partnered with the Sierra Club to Walmart selling organic veggies to BP, really beyond petroleum. Corporations are falling all over themselves to convince us that they are eco-friendly, even while they're selling us the same old poison as before. Despite their best efforts at a swindle, we know a wolf in sheep's clothing when we see one, and we know that we can't buy our way out of climate change, an ecocide, that is the destruction of the planet, with greener individual consumer habits. We need organized collective action to transform a sick society and economy, so we're changing the system, not just our light bulbs. The conspicuous consumption. Reading across infinite high-flying conveyor belts is a buffer of fancy consumer goods. Hair dryers, Cuisinarts, iPods, Xboxes, plasma screen TVs, and even pricey college diplomas. All coal-powered placebos. We're encouraged to buy as substitutes for genuine relationships, learning, and adventure. Manufactured desire means even folks' imaginations are colonized by corporate ad executives who urge suburbanites to dash from their solar-paneled McMansions to green malls in their hybrid SUVs to get the latest gizmo from Apple or Whole Foods. Not only is this consumption treadmill directly fueled by mountaintop removal, it's also incredibly isolating and depressing, and keeps folks medicating their alienation with more stuff rather than getting together to do something about it. Waste. With planned obsolescence, building things to break, and disposal, well, everything, most consumer goods aren't even consumed at all. They're just wasted. That means a real live mountain that's green and vibrant and full of life gets blown up and gutted, its insides mined and burned and turned into a lot of stuff, and then the stuff gets thrown into a landfill, trading a mountain of life for a mountain of trash. Sludge impoundments. Thanks to the Clean Air Act, coal is washed before it's burned to get some, never all, toxins out. But the deadly rinsed water has to go somewhere, usually back up the mountain into unlined open-air pits held back by some of the largest earthen dams in the world. The most famous of these is directly above Marsh Fork Elementary School in the Coal River Valley of West Virginia. This sludge is even injected into old underground mines, where it leaches and leaks into aquifers and wells, or illegally dumped into waterways. Unnatural disasters. Floods and erosion from mountaintop removal are a constant reality in the coal fields, but residents live with an even deadlier threat: impoundment collapse. The 2008 TVA spill of toxic radioactive fly ash, another type of coal waste near Harriman, Tennessee, wasn't the first time coal industry recklessness caused a life-threatening disaster in the coal fields. The Buffalo Creek Dam break of 1972 killed 118 in West Virginia. The 2000 spill in Inez, Kentucky buried 100 miles of waterways. Engineers say it's not a question of if the impoundments will break, but when. Climate injustice. Climate injustice means that the devastating burdens of climate and energy-related disasters, like the TVA spill, Hurricane Katrina, the oil blowout, are carried by folks who didn't create them or profit from them, while the responsible parties get tax breaks and bailouts and aren't held accountable for cleaning up their messes. They even make money off of reconstruction. Clean coal is a dirty lie. Coal can never be clean. A non-renewable fossil fuel containing almost every element in the periodic table, coal cannot be mined, burned, or stored without extensive damage and destruction. Yet the same corporations and big government officials that are encouraging us to shop away our guilt about climate change are labeling coal clean and hoping we won't notice we've been greenwashed. Coal economy. The gifts of coal, the threats of coal. Across the mountain and a world away from the big city, we see Appalachian communities struggling with the complicated legacy of coal mining and the oppressive stranglehold of today's coal mono economy. The seeming gifts of coal, including jobs, pensions, and subsidies for basic community services, are trucked in with a sparkling Santa smile. On the other hand, the bared teeth. Oh, okay. The and the spotlight of surveillance show the sinister side of coal, one that uses violence and threats to silence dissent and coerce complicity. Hello, hello? Pressing the wrong button, so I'm not sure how much of that I've failed to. It's gonna keep going. I read it, but I was pressing the Windows key instead of Alt, so that was push to talk key. Okay, I'll start off with the dance of hard choices again. Miner Frog is a non-union miner working on. Hello? about stream. Minecraft bread. So because of all my real life needs, when I get back to this again later, I will resume reading this guide on the Dance of Hard Choices, and then we'll start brainstorming some things we can do as Minecraft world activities to tell this story. It does get a little more encouraging as you go on. It tells more of the story of resistance, social movement building, coalfield community organizing, you know, let's see, the story of regeneration, the resilience of the earth, different ways. So solidarity economies. Solidarity economy is something I want to continue growing. That we and you know, have the tools to do this in a really engaging and fun way. So I'm excited to finish reading this guide and which, by the way, here is right next to the Miners Guild, so miners can come. It's a guild for your mining equipment here. Buy stuff. Oh yeah, I haven't been doing my Wednesday classes since I got hit by the car because that's really messed me up pretty bad. So sorry about that, everybody who was following those classes. was gonna try to eat some celebration roast, but my character isn't hungry. It's not cage magic. It's not done yet. I think. Spell shop. Yeah, through some time. See ya.